Welcome everyone to week one Beyond the Model. I'm your host, Moose at CFB_Moose on Twitter is where you can find me. Lineup advice for DraftKings, FanDuel, sports betting, lineup advice, picks, all that good stuff. We're here live every week for the NFL season. Again, I'm the host, Moose, and I'm bringing on Occupy Fantasy co-founder Brian at BrianJesterFF on Twitter. Brian, how you doing?
Season, so welcome back. How you feeling?
Pretty good. Yeah, it turns out that the amount of times I tried to click on DraftKings while I was in Asia, it was just like, uh, boom, DraftKings. It was like, just waiting for a meal. DraftKings, no location. God damn it. All right, hold
Doesn't work that way.
on. No, and but no, I'm glad to be back. Did a best ball while waiting for my luggage at the airport. That's how much I was fiending for it. And but no, week one here to chop it up, talk about Beyond the Model. Great show name. So let's get into it, Brian.
Let's do it. So for those of you that are new, welcome. Moose and I do this live stream every week on Saturdays, and
Yep.
I guess for those of you that are super new, Moose is a co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy as well. My brother handles the model, all the back-end stuff, all the data. So he's the guy with all the technical questions that we're talking to. And in this show, Moose, what we're gonna do is it's a supplement to our site content and to the Chris's video that he put out on Friday night. So Chris's main slate video and the main slate plug. Those are the best plays, right? Those are the plays that you want to play in most of your lineups. You want to play most of those guys in your lineups. But we're here to talk about the biggest contest. What are some strategies, maybe some off the wall plays that can help you surpass the crowd and answer some questions along the way.
Yeah, and as Chris put in the chat here, what do you think about Cup to IR? That's not good.
They delayed that, dude. I'm just telling you, dude. As soon as he saw a body specialist, it was game over, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, so it was a wrap. Hopefully, for his sake, he's back out there after week 4.
Yeah, as I was telling you, that same best ball while I was waiting in the airport, I had to get my luggage as soon as it was my pick, so I got auto drafted Cup and Kelsey. Almost got drafted Jonathan Taylor on the 3rd round, so thankfully not completely awful. But
Welcome back to the country.
great way to come back to the United States. But yes, yeah, so here we go. We're talking about it. And first question that we have here, actually from Chris, is what's your thoughts on Kenneth Gainwell for a value play? So again, if you have questions, go ahead, put them in the chat. We'll answer it in the mix of talking about our different strategies talks.
Hey, what's up, Chris? So I would say I think there's 2 angles to this. One, we generally don't see running backs that cheap end up in the winning lineups in week 1 just because of the other mispricings. But I will say that's a situation that no one knows what's going to happen. Most projections just kind of split up DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, and Kenneth Gainwell. Based on reporting, there's a chance that Kenneth Gainwell leads that team in touches in week 1. Again, I'm not sure you have to go there, but I think he's a guy that's going to be less than 1% owned. And if the rest of your lineup is chalky, I can see getting behind it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about these huge, large contests, the ones that break your Excel because there's over 1 million entries on DraftKings this week, the $5 millionaire, sometimes you have to get weird. And it's one of those things where you're like, well, this is a perfect situation. I think it was last year. Indianapolis running back. We didn't really know who was going to be splitting the workload. Deion Jackson got like 5 touchdowns and won somebody $1 million. Those are the type of situations that you need in these super huge, large contests. So sub 1% running back that could get work and is actually pretty good. I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair.
So, Brian, if we're talking about these big contests, one thing we got to do is we got to stack. And a stack that I actually really like is in my rankings is, hey, it's on screen right here with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm curious to get your thought process around that.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking, Moose. Maybe we'll just go back and forth naming different stack ideas. Our official stack recommendations are in the plug. And remember, we mostly recommend smaller high-risk contests. But those of you with tickets or just playing the biggest contest overall, you can use our advice here. So refer to the plug for our official recommendations. That's what I'll say first. So, Moose, what do you say we just go back and forth naming some of our favorite stacks, whether in the plug or whether not in the plug?
Yeah, let's do that and let's get weird.
All right, so you're starting with Indianapolis, right? Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll let you talk about it some, Moose, but I just think I'm getting RG3 rookie season type vibes from what this offensive ceiling could have from a rookie quarterback. And you got to think, I know other analysts have pointed this out as well. I mean, generally teams take a step back on offense with a rookie quarterback under center,
Yeah.
but there's no step to take back from Matt Ryan in that offense last year. Like they were super bad. So Richardson looks electric, and I think he's the perfect candidate for a 2-0 stack or a 2-1
Yeah.
stack.
That's what I was thinking. I think you pair him up with one wide receiver. All the wide receivers gonna be sub 5%. There's a couple deep threat options there. You pair it up with a 2-0. He has some rushing upside, so you don't want to go 3-0. Maybe you can bring it back. I don't know. Jacksonville kind of sucks, but
But they have a lot. They have a lot of options though.
yeah, they do have a lot of options. I think you start off with 2-0. If you do make it to a 2-1, don't hate it, but I think you start there. And it's a great way to start a lineup. I actually think you could play that, and not the largest contest. I think you can also play it in some other leagues as well.
Yeah, I mean, playing him and Pittman as a 2-0, and then
Mhm.
maybe run it back with Ridley or Etienne or whoever your Jaguar of choice is. I think that's fine. But that's another great point, Moose. You bring about, you don't have to bring back. I just talked about this with Chuck in the 11 a.m. underdog stream,
Mhm.
but Chris talked about this in his video last night as well. Talks about it in the plug. In week one, because of the sheer number of games, that combined with how soft the pricing is, generally we don't see many game stacks end up in the top 0.1% of the largest GPPs.
Mhm.
Smaller GPPs, yes, you want to reduce your margin of error. Larger GPPs, you have to be more, you have to get more accurate. And so, past 3 or 4 years, we've seen mostly 2-0, 3-0 stacks be the best options.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago, we saw a bunch of 3-1s make it, and we've seen some 2-1s make it. So I think what you said is probably the best way to approach it if you're hand building is start with 2-0, build out your lineup, and then if you end up on a 3-0, and if you see a bring back that you like that fits, certainly fine.
Yeah.
But I think the baseline is 2-0 and go from there in week one.
Yes, 100%. So, yeah. So that was my first stack that I like to talk about. And Brian, I'll kick it over to you for the next one.
All right, sounds good. I see we have a question in the chat. Uh, I'm gonna blow this name. You got the name for me?
Eliezer Ledesma.
All right, Eleazar. If we said it wrong, our apologies. Let us know how to say it in the chat so we can get it right next time. Eleazar. What do you guys think about a lineup with a Miami Los Angeles Chargers stack? So Moose, I think this will be the most popular stack. I think it's probably the top of everyone's stack rankings for the most part. And this is a situation where we have an offensive coordinator change from last year.
Mm-hmm.
We get a huge upgrade to Kellen Moore. They've already talked about going more receivers, throwing the ball downfield, which everyone has clamored for since Justin Herbert has been in LA. So we should see a lot of deep shots.
Yeah.
And obviously, we know what Miami can do on offense. The one thing that has me a little hesitant, especially if it's going to be popular, is the fact that Miami is missing Teron Armstead. We talk about how most projections can't capture offensive line injuries nor defensive injuries.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most important offensive tackles to his offense in football. He's going to miss this week. We saw them struggle last year without him. I'm hoping that over the past 8 months, they developed some sort of, I don't know, band-aid to fix this. And not that, I mean, Moose, when someone misses a top offensive tackle, you can't really replace him, right? But
Yeah.
you can do something, maybe add another blocker to that side. Maybe they found someone in free agency or have developed someone to at least get him through a couple games. So I don't know if the drop-off will be as bad as it was last year, but it's enough to think about.
Yeah.
But I got to say, on paper, it looks like a great stack on both sides.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, with offensive line injury, I could actually make the opposite case of, maybe you don't stack that side, maybe you do that as your bring back if that's what you're worried on, or maybe completely ignore it altogether. I don't know. That's a tricky situation. I have them ranked kind of high. I think they're my fourth or fifth team, like game to look forward to. So again, I don't hate it. Just a lot of concerns. It's definitely one of those. Take a step back. Maybe play only in higher risk contests for me, I think.
Or you just play Justin Herbert and Mike Williams, as Dot Bets is in the chat points out. Rocket ship with the deeper downfield passing. I mean, we talked about 2-0 stacks seconds ago. Maybe just play Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen and/or Mike Williams, and you don't have to bring it back. I feel like a lot of people who do stack in high risk will bring it back because they can put up 30, and even if it's like 30-3, Herbert can get there. And Moose, with Dot Bet's comment in the chat, maybe we should talk about his show tomorrow morning so everyone's aware.
Yeah, so Dot Bets, awesome guy, even better, and he's doing a show tomorrow. He's going to be using our AccuProp radar over on his channel. Definitely go ahead, give him a follow, subscribe, all that good stuff to him. Show him some love. If you're coming from, watching his show from over here, definitely give him some thumbs up. Go ahead and chat with him as well. He's just going to be breaking down some bets using the AccuProp radar, which you can find on our site at occupyfantasy.com to get the best lines for all your prop bets across all legal sports books.
Sounds good. I think it's tomorrow morning at 11. DFS,
Yeah.
let us know if not, but I think it's 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So guys, go check that out, and it's in our Discord if you miss it. So
Perfect. Brian, I actually wanted to get your opinion on this. It's one of those things. This is where we start to take the turn of good stacks, decent stacks to, maybe this isn't the best stack, but I definitely like it. It's actually the number one ranking stack in my rankings, and it's actually Minnesota. And I think this is a stack where you can do a 3-0. You have, if you look at our Occupy model, you have Justin Jefferson, number one wide receiver. TJ Hawkinson, we know he can do well, Minnesota. Number one tight end in the model. And if you have, my thought process is you have two top position players for a team. Just put the quarterback in with it. Make it a 3-0 stack. They're already going to score well. The quarterback's going to score well also. And so while Kirk Cousins is pretty abysmal in the model, middle of the pack towards the bottom, if the other two, if Jefferson, Hawkinson, all do well, go over their expected team total, he's going to have a part in that. So you add him on 3-0. Tampa Bay has a bunch of different wide receivers if you want to bring it back as well. Godwin, Mike Evans, all that stuff. I think that's actually one of my favorite 3-1 stacks. If you again, we're not forcing in 3-1 stacks during week one, but I think with Godwin near the top of the model, if he fits in, you get some nice pricing with him at 5,900. I think you can turn it into a 3-1.
yeah, I think it's one of my favorite 3-1s. I totally agree, especially the Minnesota side. .bets, by the way, says it is 10 a.m. Eastern, not 11 a.m. So thanks for the correction. Glad we're a professional organization on top of everything here. So no, I agree, Moose. I couldn't say much. Plus, it's a pivot off Alexander Madison, who looks to project relatively popular on FanDuel and DraftKings. So Cousins, Jefferson. I like Addison a lot, was drafting him a lot in best ball. And I will say, Moose, we look at our model. It doesn't have really much data to go off. It has no 2023 data. We just have 2022 data, trends, college data, historical leaps from college to pros. So this actually sounds crazy, but average draft position, so you can look at our underdog tool on the site or whatever average draft position you use. Average draft position is more predictive of fantasy points per game through the first 4 weeks than any other metric, right? Than our model, and then once week 2 starts, then previous weeks. In week 3, ADP is still more predictive than week 1 and week 2 scoring. So, we're looking at Jordan Addison, a guy that was being drafted 6th, 7th round, 1% owned. I would look, if you're looking for pivots, you're looking for high upside plays, look for offenses and or players that were drafted in the top 8-9 rounds in best ball in season long. And if they're low owned, they are probably going to, maybe not in week 1, but week 2, they're going to play pretty well. We drafted them that highly for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really make any sense. Like if you were thinking about it from a best ball league, you're like, oh, I'm going to draft this guy 5th, 6th round and never play him. Like
right. Like why are you drafting him?
Yeah, why draft him, right?
So, right, because you get Cousins was like around 9-10, whatever, right? But you get Jefferson, you get Jordan Addison, you get TJ Hawkinson, and then on the bring back, or if you're, I don't know, man, it's crazy. Maybe you play Baker Mayfield side, right? Chris Godwin round 5-6, Mike Evans round 6-7, Rashad White round 6-7, right? Like, that's a stack that has a lot of ADP value that no one's gonna be playing.
Yeah, so shoot, if you're playing a single bullet, I think that can be a good start there. And Brian, we can keep talking about different stacks, but I also wanted to pick your brain about something. So week 1 pricing, always super weird, and so a lot of mispricings, a lot of values. How are you handling that? Are you kind of just, are you still trying to get as much salary as possible? If you like a lineup, but it's 1,000 over, are you keeping it there, or are you trying to upgrade? I'm just curious to get your process there.
Yeah, generally still trying to spend all the salary. And I thought what was super interesting was looking back at some of the top 0.1% lineups in the biggest contests, both the $5 millionaire, the $100 millionaire, and even the millionaire over on FanDuel. What you see is, and I'll talk about this for DraftKings first, and the viewer can kind of extrapolate this to FanDuel. But really, we see a max of one player under 4K in winning lineups. Winning lineups being top 0.1%, right? Once you get there, anything can happen.
Yeah.
And really a max of 2 under 5K, right? Like if you're using an optimizer or a lineup builder, it might spit out some of the, like Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, I don't know, Eckler, and then fill it in with some of these 3K plays that project really well. Marvin Mims, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, guys like that, right? Deion Jackson's 4K, guys like that, and you end up with this like barbell type lineup. Traditionally, those have not won. 2 years ago, we saw 3-1 stacks and this barbell approach win. But I think that was unique pricing, one, and two, the way the slate shook out with an elite tight end that just scored 1 billion points that you had to have. Here this week, I think it's great to set a rule, a max of 2 guys under 5K. If there's a 3K player in the lineup, and if there's no 3K player, maybe you can play 3-4K guys. But my point remaining was balanced lineups win more often than not. It's what Chris talked about last night. It's why we see 5 and 6K running backs and then winning lineups on DK in week 1 because of this pricing dynamic. So I think as you're building, be cognizant of this salary barbell that you could lean into without even thinking about.
Yeah, my first thought process is the Occupy Fantasy or the lineup builder that we have, custom rules, perfect use case for that. So if you're using a lineup builder, definitely go ahead and check that out. If you have trouble with setting up the custom rules, we do have the Discord channel, the lineup builder channel. Will help you all out.
Yeah, so like for instance, this morning I built some, and it was like I got a bunch of multiple 3K guys in the same lineup because it had Tyreek and Justin Jefferson, or Tyreek and whoever the hell else, right? Set these rules. My exposures changed a lot, but they end up resembling a lot of the lineups that would end up at the top of leaderboards in traditional week 1 contests. So definitely something to be aware of.
Absolutely, yep. Actually, another question here from .bet says, for high risk, when do you typically put a secondary stack 1-1 in your 3-0 or 3-1 or 2-0 or 2-1? Does it just depend on a particular slate?
Yeah, I think it depends on A, the contest size, and B, the number of games on the slate. So if you're playing a 500,000 person field in week 1 moves with 13 games on the slate, you're gonna have to be a little more precise with your lineup in order to win those contests. Right? It's just the fact of the matter. Correlation isn't going to help you as much when the contest gets bigger and when the slate size gets bigger. I used this example with Chuck today. Let's just say, for example, there were 200 games on the slate. Maybe we could say that's college football DFS, right? 200 games on the slate. Generally, the correlation for one of those 200 in this rare example isn't going to really help you get to the top of the leaderboard because there's 199 other games for people to score well from. If there was 2 games on the slate, which we see sometimes in short slates, then correlation and game stacking becomes much more viable. I think that's the case here. 13 games, it's one of the largest slates. It is the largest slate we'll see all season. I think correlation in the secondary sense matters less, and in the 3-1 stack question that you mentioned earlier, Moose. So I think that best the question is, in larger contests, I wouldn't force a secondary stack. On larger slate sizes, I wouldn't force it. But in smaller contests, right, where we're just trying to get to the top of 200 people and we're trying to maximize the correlation, reduce our margin of error, then you can turn on secondary stacks. So Moose, if you're playing like a 100-player league this week, I would say be fine with 3-1s, be fine with secondary stacks, because really that's going to maximize your chance of winning that particular contest.
Exactly. Yep. Cool. So let's see here. Let me check the chat. A couple people are asking questions about specific players. Just to let you know, just Parker, Hawk Dark, just what type of contest, what site are you playing, so we can go ahead and answer the question a little bit better. If it's season long or fantasy, daily fantasy, all that stuff like that. So, Brian, I know I didn't want to cut you off, but was there another stack that you had as well that you wanted to talk about, or not really?
Yeah, there is. Really quickly, Hawk Dark says Pierce paired with Richardson, so maybe some sort of bring back. Yeah, the correlation is there. I don't really like Pierce as much, but if there's going to be a game where the game script favors him, it's probably this one. Oh wait, they don't even play in the same game, so those are 2 separate players. Indy plays Jacksonville, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just asking if 2 players can be in the same line together from different games. Yeah, that's fine. Alec Pierce. Okay, this makes a lot more sense. Sorry, Hawk. It's week 1 for all of us, dude. Sorry. Yeah, he was. If you played preseason DFS and you read our reports or even watched some of the games, the reporters said that They were connecting on deep balls. Pearson, Richardson, many times throughout practice, favorite deep target. So I think if there is a guy, we'd like Pittman the best, just based on ADP, based on his projected target share. But you're looking for a cheap, deep shot flyer, then Alec Pierce is that guy. So I would probably only play that in the largest contest.
Makes sense to me.
Um,
Go ahead.
but yes, stacks. I don't. Most. Can we talk about Baltimore enough? I don't know if we can. I'm just trying to get the point across this week that Baltimore is in such a rare spot.
Okay.
All right. So everything. And again, if you watched the 11 o'clock show, I'm sorry. If you watched Chris's show, I'm sorry. If you watched any of our best ball streams, I'm sorry for repeating this. But everything that we have been told from Baltimore themselves, literally out of the mouths of their quarterbacks, out of the mouths of their offensive coordinator, Tom Bonk. This is not your same Ravens team that you have seen the past few years. You think Ravens, you think multiple tight ends, crazy run to pass ratios. This is not them. They're going to go 3 and 4 wide, and yes, Andrews will be a part of that. And they're going to pass, and they're going to pass downfield, and they're going to pass a ton. They signed Odell Beckham. They drafted Rashad Bateman last year, drafted Zay Flowers in the first this year. So for the life of me, Moose, despite them telling us all of this, Lamar Jackson projects pretty well, yet all of his receivers are like under 3% on FanDuel and DraftKings as one of the highest team totals on the board. It's like no one is listening to what they're being told. And when I say no one, I mean the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking here, and it's actually gone down now. It's basically everyone's like 1-2% at the
Crazy,
most
dude.
on there. Yeah, I mean, it's normally we've said last year that you're stacking a running quarterback like Lamar. Maybe you cap it at a 2-0. Do you still think that? Do you think you can go 3-0 with Baltimore? I mean, they're super cheap, so it kind of ties into, do you want to play too many cheap players?
Yeah, that's the thing. So maybe those are your 2 cheap guys, and you load up the rest of the way. But we think, can running quarterbacks support this? What they're telling us, he's going to pass a shit ton, dude. So, like, I think you can. I think obviously the safest is just to play Zay or just to play Rashad or just to play Odell. But most people who play Lamar and stack are going to play Andrews. And clearly ownership is telling us that people aren't playing the receivers that are going to be out there for 70, 80, 90% of the snaps. So I truly do not think there's a better spot this week.
And we're going to watch, and they're going to turn into Army Navy and just run 45 plays a game. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, Todd Monken is fired if that happens. By the way, Tom Monken had a fantastic quote this week. They asked him, I think it was Friday after practice, and they said, how do you think your rookies are going to do in week 1? He said week 1 is, if you're a rookie, player coach, week 1 is scary as hell. He said, my first week as a play caller in NFL week 1, we had 7 straight 3-and-outs, and he was like, holy shit, I thought this was supposed to be fun. This is not fun at all. So listen, if professionals can do that, players and both we as DFS players can do that as well. So don't be hard on yourself in week 1.
Yeah. And we have a question here from Eric. He says, can we play Ravens D on FanDuel? We haven't talked really much about defenses for week 1. Normally, Brian, for the first couple of weeks, I'm kind of just fitting in as a last spot, kind of whatever works. For me, looking at some of the top of the models as well, we don't have really like ADP for defensive teams. So curious to get your thoughts there.
For Ravens specifically, most expensive defense on the slate, only 5% projected ownership. Because of the pricing, I think you can get there. I think because there are cheaper plays, other positions, you can certainly play the Ravens defense. I mean, great spot, right? 10-point favorites against Houston. You got to love the spot itself. I think more importantly, we have to talk about most is Washington and GPPs. Commanders, 7-point favorites. I think against Josh Dobbs, those losers still haven't officially said who their quarterback is going to be yet for Arizona. But we have them 16% projected on DraftKings, 14% on FanDuel. It's honestly going to be higher. In smaller contests, it's going to be way higher. Yes, they rank number 1 in our model. But here's the thing, where you have 26 teams on the slate. You're probably not going to win GPPs if Washington puts up 15, 16 points.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to happen. This is going to be on too many rosters. I think if you're playing the largest contest, you just got to cross them out. Pray that they don't score well. I mean, because there's 2 ways you can win, right? They fail, or the defense you pick outscores them.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you just have to do that. The ownership's too high for a fucking 13-game slate. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, basically 20+% on a defense is just absolutely absurd. I would rather much, like, and they're also on FanDuel they're kind of expensive, but DraftKings, they're kind of cheap. They're actually very cheap.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I
It's
think
kind
on DraftKings, their ownership is going to get out of control.
yeah, but I mean, there's enough teams around them that maybe I don't know. Cleveland's kind of high in the model. Yeah, I mean, you could do something like Cleveland. You take the case that is Burrow actually fully healthy.
True.
Yeah, you play that card, and you get like 1% instead of 18%, 20%. Maybe he's not 100%, and you get there. So that's great. And also,
But
the other way they win is they don't have to score. As long as they don't score like multiple pick sixes, you're okay. If they
right.
just score okay, you
Yeah,
can bounce back from that.
yeah, they score like 10 years straight, right? It's just when they like pick six the first drive, and you're like, are you serious? Packers, another pivot. Justin
Yeah.
Fields, like historically bad sack rate. So lots of options. I'm just saying, I don't think in the largest contest you can play Washington. Smaller, low risk, yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Largest contest, I just don't think game theory wise makes a ton of sense.
Makes sense to me. Bet says any interest in Seattle LA stacks, only stacking the Seattle side 3-0 or 2-0 and running it back with Higbee.
Yeah, so Cooper Kupp, we talked about at the top of the show, officially out. Traditionally, when he has been out, Tyler Higbee's target share has skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
I think he ranks highly in the model, if I'm not mistaken, Moose. So, yeah, I like that as a bring back. Seattle expected to air it out a ton. 3 legit receivers to pair with them. I could see either way. I think it's, Moose, is what you talked about earlier. I think start with a 2-0 from Seattle and start building. And if you like a 3-0, you like a 3-1, let it ride. I just wouldn't force it. But in all, I think it's a game that you can stack.
Yeah, and one thing I like to do, if I'm stuck between if I want to do a bring back or if I want to add that extra 3-0, I'll create another slate group in our lineup builder. I'll put the same kind of rules that I'm trying to do, and I'll just build 300 lineups and see kind of what percent exposures it gets. If let's say out of 300, only like 5% give me an extra player or a bring back, I know that there's a lot more options instead of forcing that 3-0 or 3-1, 2-1, etc. And I got to look elsewhere and just completely get that out of my mind. I'm not even bringing back on that side. But if it shows up that 60, 80% of the times you're having to bring back or add an extra player, it's like, oh, maybe I should actually do this.
Yeah. Excuse me. No, I totally agree. I think it's a great way to approach it.
Yep. Let's see here. Thank you, Eric. Eric says thanks, Brian and Moose. Appreciate it. See Leon's in the chat as well. What's up, Leon? Brian, one position we haven't really talked about too much. We've talked about stacking. We talked about a little bit about tight ends, a little bit about defenses. We haven't talked about too much about running backs. A lot of values. I know we talked about not playing too many too many cheap running backs. But I'm curious to get your thought if there's anyone that could be at the top of the model that are low ownership, high ownership, any running backs that are kind of standing out from you in a positive or negative way.
Yeah, I think. All right, so for those of you who were around last year, we talked about how it is pretty important to win a large field GPP to have, if you're making multiple lineups, have heavy exposure to low-owned running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, traditionally ownership is a great predictor of running back success. Not saying you have to fade the most popular running backs, but we look at who's the dude that won 3 millies? The name's escaping my mind. But 1-3 millies had 50% plus exposure to 5% running backs each time. You look at someone like Two Gun, who's won multiple millies. Low on running backs has been a key as well. So if you're looking at guys under 5% on DraftKings this week that I think we have to consider, again, ownership's going to update throughout the next 12 hours or so. But Najee Harris, 4%. We talk about ADP, third and fourth round draft pick, 4% owned. We talk about James Conner. No competition in that backfield.
Yeah.
No one wants to play James Conner as a 7-point underdog. Maybe rightfully so. But when he's on the field, he's produced. So I say we got Najee Harris. We have James Conner. Miles Sanders.
Okay.
I'm not thrilled about it, but Atlanta's not a world beater. Sanders, they talked about him catching more passes. 6th, 7th round pick, 4% owned. And then I think probably my favorite, I think Chris called him out yesterday for the most reasonable ones. 4% Brian Robinson. If Arizona does suck as bad as we think, and Brian Robinson gets more work than Gibson, we could see him get 20-plus touches in a great game script.
I like it. One actually that kind of stuck out to me in a negative way, and it's because I literally have 0 shares of him in all my best ball leagues, is Kenneth Walker. And the couple of times I've been on stream with Chris, I think he's also been a little bit lower on him as well. And to see him near the top of the model kind of scares me, but doesn't. I'm curious to get your thoughts on him.
he's a guy that is terrifying to play at play or fade at high ownership.
Yeah.
Right, because majority of his fantasy points come from long runs, specifically long touchdown runs. I think from a workload standpoint, you have to. I much prefer playing Walker when he's 3%, whatever. Right. You got to think he was on and off the injury report with a groin injury, not just this week, but all camp. They drafted Zach Charbonnet in the second round. DJ Dallas is still hanging around. They've skewed more pass heavy last year. At 15%, it seems bad on a 13-game slate. But he just has the explosiveness moves, right? So I agree with you. I think it's if all right, we got to choose fade or play 100%. It's fade for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm very scared doing it.
Anytime he touches the ball, I'm just be like, oh shit.
Yeah, I know.
Question here from Gamble with Jake, which is a great username. And I think that's like Blackjack or something as his icon. Fantastic. Adam Troutman listed as tight end 1 for Denver at minimum salary on DraftKings. Is he actually playing or is he just blocking?
Yeah, so he's playing because he's familiar with Sean Payton's system. Take a shot. Anyone is familiar with the system, and that's why they're playing. We love that that move by coaching staffs. Troutman, not really a prolific pass catcher. Dulcich is the guy that is the prolific pass catcher there. They talked about them having roles. Troutman is number 1. It is mostly for blocking. There's a reason Greg Dulcich was being drafted in fantasy drafts and Troutman was not being drafted.
Yeah.
Maybe the community is wrong. Maybe the industry is wrong. But I would say he's a guy on a 13-game slate that we don't have to have much interest in. Let's monitor his usage, right? Week 1, maybe he runs a ton of routes and Dulcich is buried on the depth chart. Then maybe week 2 we consider him. I just don't think there's a need to really try to find out by playing him in week 1.
Yeah, makes sense to me as well. Cool. So normally we're here for about 30-40 minutes or so. We've hit the 30-something minute mark. Any other things that you want to talk about, Brian?
All right, man. We're going to dig deep each for another crazy stack.
Okay.
Do you have one in mind?
Let me take a look over here at my rankings. And...
I have one in mind if you want me to talk first.
Yeah, let's go talk first.
This is so bad.
Okay.
That's why we're here, though, right? This is so bad.
Yeah.
Atlanta, Carolina.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. I mean, this is where people start to turn off the show. But again, I will preach that this is the largest contest only. These are galaxy brain ideas. Carolina's defense, right, okay. Brian Burns isn't going to play, probably. Contract issues. We'll see if he gets his contract resolved today. If he's out, I feel much better about this absolutely crazy great game stack.
Yeah.
But things we're looking for from cheap stacks: condensed target shares. Drake London, check. Atlanta side. Bijan Robinson, going to catch passes, check. Kyle Pitts, who the hell knows if they're going to give him the ball. But Desmond Ridder's super cheap. And then most importantly, on the Carolina side, DJ Chark is out, so that condenses the target tree a little bit. Thielen's questionable. I think he's going to play. Just got a little veteran rest on Thursday. I think Thielen's going to play. But that helps rookie Jonathan Mingo and Adam Thielen. And one of Atlanta's top cornerbacks, Jeff Okudah, they got in the offseason. He's going to miss the game. Moose, the only thing we're missing is underperforming wide receiver for this trifecta of condensed target share with an injured teammate and opposing DB missing. We don't have that because it's only week 1. But that makes me like Jonathan Mingo just in general. He's 1% owned, 2% owned, whatever we project him to be.
Yeah.
But I'll say Atlanta, Carolina in a game that if we do decide to play, we just get mad when they run the ball 70 times and the score is 17-14.
I mean, that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here.
That is why we're here.
Definitely. So I have an asterisk on my little stack, assuming this person is out. But I don't think he's going to be. But over with San Francisco, I know Kittle's questionable. He was limited in practice all week, officially questionable. If he's out, I like San Francisco as a 2-0 stack. Maybe it would even be interesting. I think you could do this Galaxy Brain. I think you do. I think you do Brock Purdy and you run it back with Christian McCaffrey. You just keep that as your 2-0 stack.
Okay.
And they don't. You figure less if Kittle's out, who's primarily short game, mid game. McCaffrey can pick up on that. He's a great pass catcher. He's going to get rushing options. He has one of the highest weighted opportunity across projections, whether that's our model or like any other industry, like raw projection. He's going to be out in the field a lot. And with Kittle out, I think he's even going to explode even more. think you lock up pretty much all the rushing that touchdown opportunity there. And if they score a bunch, I think Christian McCaffrey's going to be a part of that.
I like that most, and I think most people are thinking if this guy plays, I can't wait to play a stack. But most people aren't thinking if the guy doesn't play, I can't wait to play the stack because that just opens up more targets for other guys, right? If Kittle's 5-6 targets are missing, that's going to go to McCaffrey, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, maybe a couple to the backup. So no, I like that a lot. I think Purdy actually rates relatively highly in our model too. So lots of people talking about Atlanta in the chat. So my apologies for even bringing that up.
No, that's the thing. You just have to have like the WOT takes and just get the engagement up. That's how we do it here.
That is true. All right, next we're stacking Houston. Who are the worst teams? Okay.
we're stacking. Okay, if you want a spicy take, here's the thing. We talked about this before, that when there's these huge slates, NFL primarily, the 1 p.m. only, maybe the 4 p.m., some showdown slates, the smaller slates that, don't get all the biggest attention and stuff, you can do very well in those. I think you use the model, you use ADP, you use whatever you want, and you use kind of the same kind of strategies that we do for showdown, for your 100-player leagues, your low risk, and you can do pretty well. Brian, one thing I was thinking of, if you want to be like super hot take, if there's a GPP for it, I haven't even loaded up DraftKings for it, but do you play backup quarterbacks in the Arizona-Washington single game?
Dude, we are off the rails.
It's called beyond the model, man. Like he's like the backup quarterback's not on the model. I'm going beyond the model.
That is all right, man. You're I can't argue that. You're literally going with the name of the show. I'll pull it up here. I think that is a slate on DraftKings. I'll take a look. But as I'm pointing up, that is a great point about. I think the Cincinnati-Cleveland game is the featured showdown slate in the afternoon, and okay. I took a glance in one of the contests and it was like filled with pros for some reason. But the smaller ones, that is a showdown slate. The smaller one with smaller prizes are not going to be filled with pros. I think it's a great way to approach week one. I mean, week one in general, we should have lowered allocation from our bankroll anyways, just because of the uncertainty. Historically, the model performance. Let me see here. There is a $150 tournament. Let's just take a look. So Josh Dobbs is 9,400. Clayton Tune is 6K. I mean, I don't think the fields are big enough most to play it. However, if it was, Clayton Tune at 6K in a completely off the rails comment is in play for showdown.
Please clip that somebody and put it up there. Let's see here. All right, so let's go back to the comments here. So it says Eagles 4-point favorites, new offensive coordinator, still 25-point team total. Do you think Patriots D is going to stop them?
I don't think so. I mean, that's a tough ass team to stop, dude. So, I don't know. There's some uncertainty there. They didn't play at all in preseason, right? Is there any rust? New England typically a pretty decent defense, and expensive, right? We tend to shy away from the expensive options in week one as far as like a group, right? Not having these top heavy lineups. So I think there's reason not to play that. But if they just go off, right? Like 2 years ago, we saw it was literally Tyreek, Kelsey, and Mahomes 3-by-1s in the winning lineup or 3-0s in the winning lineup. Who's to say the Eagles can't do that this week? So I don't think it's completely off the table. I just don't know if it would be my first option.
Makes sense to me. Let's see here. WW says, I feel like Jan can explode here because of a weak Carolina defense, and talks a lot about the unconfidence in Riddler and how that shoots Bijan up. So curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason no one's playing Atlanta stacks, right? So, I don't know. I will just say this, right? When teams historically skew in one direction, typically the following season, they are not that extreme. Yeah. And in this particular reference, Atlanta, I mean, just ran the ball like they got paid to run the ball last year. Are they going to run more than the average team this year? Yes. Are they going to pass more than last year? Also, yes. So I think it opens up. I mean, you don't just draft a guy and then just run the ball 90% of the time, right? You eventually have to. And Ritter did look decent passing the ball in preseason. They gave him some decent concepts. So I'm not saying go stack Atlanta, right? But if you have a bunch of lineups or you're playing some cheap stuff, you're taking some shots. I'm just saying they're going to pass more than they did last year, and they have weapons, and it's cheap. So.
Yeah, exactly. And this is for, again, the highest contest, the $5 like 3 million player contest that. You basically need a miracle to win week one. So That could be the one there.
Wait, dude, I cannot explain how far down the rankings this is, but we're just talking about off the wall. And you said San Francisco, I said Atlanta. Um, that about does it, I think. Most. Do you have? All right, we go back to running backs. Do you have a running back that you like that's under 5%?
Let me go ahead and pull up here. Running back under 5%. Let me look up here. So this goes under 5%. I think this is again one of those. It's those very high risk things, right? You have to split backfield in Washington. Do you take a shot? Both of them projected to be under 5% with Brian Robinson. I like him. I have a lot more shares best ball with him over Gibson. Curious to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think Robinson's the guy for this particular game. They'll probably split it just enough to make us upset.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. That man. Someone mentioned the Philadelphia backfield, right? DeAndre Swift's 3%. They traded for him. Like, what if he's just the guy, right? They've been saving him, and they just unleash him, and he gets like this like CMC type role, and he's 3% at 5,400. Not saying it's gonna happen, but like, would anyone be shocked if he catches like 7-8 passes in week 1, and we're like, oh shit, yeah, someone actually used DeAndre Swift, right? Like, I could see that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Dot says, how are you handling Judy and McLaurin?
McLaurin sounds like a full go. MRI showed no official damage, so grade 1 at worst, turf toe. I think he's off the injury report. So I'm handling McLaurin as normal, typical wide receiver, whatever you want to. However you would typically rank him, I'm ranking him as that. Jerry Jeudy, I think Denver's going to be stupid and push him to play. From what Sean Payton said on Friday, he said we have tags for Jeudy and 11 personnel. So basically, for those who aren't familiar with NFL lingo, basically, throughout the week and in their game planning, they had some plays lined up for Jeudy to play limited snaps in 3 wide receiver sets. So 2 wide receiver sets, traditional base, their game plan. Judy's not going to be playing if he plays, but they do have some plays that if Jeudy plays, they're going to call him in for 3 wide receiver sets. So I have a feeling that I think they're going to play him despite him having this hamstring injury, which isn't the greatest idea in week 1. And if he does, he's only going to play in 3 wide receiver sets. So I would say if he plays, we're not playing him. But it also does make it annoying enough to not maybe play Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims. But that is my other sneaky stack. We looked for differences last year. A team could not be more incompetent than Denver's coaching staff, and now they get the stability of Sean Payton. I think as a community we could be too low on Denver, and a great matchup in week 1 here against Vegas. So I think Denver's another sneaky stack, and to that point, I'm just hoping Jeudy doesn't play, kind of like your George Kittle comment.
Exactly, yep. And I'm sure we'll get that with the Schefter news dump or something like that tomorrow morning. Let's see here. Danny says, are there any young guys you're fading or old guys you're playing because people with best ball brain aren't valuing them properly?
Yeah, best ball brain is infecting everyone these days. That's a great question. I mean, like we talked about Najee, right? Like people were quote unquote fading him, and his ADP fell to the 4th round, but he's a guy that ranks top 6, top 7 in the model this week. So that's an example. I would just look for the differences in ADP and our model ranking just to see what you think. I honestly, I probably could come up with some names. I just don't have any off the top of my head.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, Hawk Dark says, thoughts on, is that Jaden Reed for Green Bay for DraftKings?
Yeah, so Christian Watson out. Dobbs is officially questionable. I think he might play. We'll see here. Either way, Reed's a slot guy. Ranked well in a lot of prospect models. And looks to be pretty good. Caught a touchdown in preseason with the starting unit. He'll be the guy. Even if Dobbs is limited, Reed might be the guy. I want to say he's 3K. So yeah, Reed, great option if you want to go with the 1 3K option in your lineup.
Makes sense to me. Perfect. CA says, have we discussed the Colts backfield yet? I don't think we've talked a little bit about it, but anything specific that you want to know about the backfield, CA, we're happy to answer.
Maybe we'll close out the show with this, Moose, as we hit the 45-minute mark. So Zach Moss downgraded to doubtful today. He's not going to play with that broken arm. He'll probably be back next week. So they have Deion Jackson. They have rookie Evan Hall, who, speaking of best ball brain, I was drafting an absolute shit ton of late in August. But so in addition to that, they have Jake Funk. Shout out Maryland Terrapin, Jake Funk on the team. So it's going to be 3 guys. Deion Jackson likely going to get the bulk of the work. He's extremely popular at 4,100. But week 1, this coaching staff didn't draft or sign Deion Jackson. They drafted Evan Hall. Is Evan Hall ready for the big show? I don't know, but he got snaps with Anthony Richardson alongside Deion Jackson during Richardson's last tune-up performance in the preseason. I'm just saying, at 1/15 of the ownership or whatever it's going to be, I don't think Hall is the worst pivot from Deion Jackson. However, I think the most likely outcome is Deion Jackson gets a majority of the work at 4,100, which makes his ownership is what it is.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Cool. So that'll pretty much close out the show. Brian, do you have any last thoughts before I take us out of here?
No, so the daily plug's up, occupyfantasy.com. The model is up and continuing to be updated throughout the day and tomorrow morning. Builder is up. You can build up 300 lineups for all the slates that we were suggesting here on stream. And Jake and I have a UFC stream. If you guys are here for UFC, 3:30, so in about 45 minutes. Chris, our NFL writer, will have a live Discord Q&A 11 a.m. tomorrow in Discord, occupyfantasy.com/Discord, where he just kind of runs through the slate, final thoughts, takes questions that you have. And then .bet show is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on his channel, at .bets on Twitter. You can get more information from him. I think that's all the promotional material I have, most.
Yeah. Don't forget to read the plug, MMA plug. You got about 45 minutes. Take about 30 minutes, read the MMA plug. Then go ahead, think of any questions, ask it at the show at 3:30. Brian and Jake do a great job at that. And then let's just go win some money, Brian.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, so with Occupy Fantasy, I'm Moose alongside Brian. Until next time, have a good night.